Hello, class. Today we are going to take a look at some different methods for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions. Starting out with addition, we're going to use an area model. Okay, so I have my problem here, 1/4 plus 2/8. So I already have my couple of area models drawn here where I have a circle divided into 4 equal sections, which represents my denominator here. I have a circle divided into 8 equal sections, which represents my denominator here. Now what I need to do is either color in or shade in, or I'm going to use some magnets to represent my numerator. So for my fourths, my numerator is 1, so I would just put that there in one of those sections. For my eighths, my numerator is 2, so I'm going to take 2 magnets to fill that in. And so now I can see that I have 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4 of those sections. Over here, I have 1, 2 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that represents my 2 and my 8. Now, in order to solve the problem, I need to first find a common denominator. So I would start with my smaller denominator and work from there. I know the first multiple of 4 is 4. The second multiple of 4 is 8. Well, I can see that 8 and 8, I have a common denominator. Now, what did I multiply that times 2? So I need to multiply both the top and the bottom times 2. Gives me 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. So now I have my problem with my common denominators, 2/8 plus 2/8 equals. Now I would draw another circle and I would divide it into 8 equal sections. That represent those 8 equal sections represent my denominator. And now again, you would shade in or color in. I'm going to use these magnets to represent my numerator. So my first numerator is 2. So I will put in 2 to represent that. My second numerator is 2. So I will put in 2 to represent that. And now I can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 8 total sections that are colored in. So I know that that is 4 over 8. And now we need to determine, can this be simplified? Yes, we know it can, because we know that from over our math over here that 4 and 8 can both be divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And so our sum of our original problem is 1/2. So now we're going to move on to subtraction using the regrouping method. So let's start out with my problem here of 2 1/4 minus 1 4/8. So the first thing I need to do here is find a common denominator. Again, I'm going to start with my smaller denominator of 4. I'm going to go 4, 8. So again, I know that right there I have an 8. I don't need to go any farther. So again, I will multiply my 1/4 times 2 over 2 because this represents one whole. That keeps everything equal. We're not actually changing what the fraction value is. We're just making the denominators the same. So 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. So now I have 1 and 2 minus 1 4/8. So now I need to subtract my numerators. I cannot take 4 from 2, so I need to borrow 1 from this whole number and regroup it into the numerator. So the whole number as a fraction is this numerator and denominator are always the same. So I'm going to take, this will become 1, and then I'm going to have that. The numerator and denominator are always the same, but I need to have it as 8s. Okay, so I'm going to add that to my 2/8, and that gives me a total of 10/8. So now, since this is 1, I have my problem looks like this. I have 1 10/8 minus 1 4/8. Now I can subtract my numerators. And so 10 minus 4 equals 6. I know that that is over 8. And I know that 1 minus 1 equals 0. So I don't need to do anything with that. Now I need to see, can I simplify my answer? Yes, I can. Both numbers can be divided by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And so my difference of my original problem is 3 over 4, or 3/4. Now we're going to move on to multiplication. And for multiplication, we have the shaded regions method. So again, let's start with my problem. I have my fractions. I have for 3/4 times 4/5. And so I have already drawn out my total region here. So what I have here is I have 4 rows to represent my denominator for my first fraction and 5 columns to represent my denominator of my second fraction. And I can see that I could count them, I can multiply them, I can see that that is a total of 20. So now what I would do is I would use regions, other shaded regions, to divide this up. So now I need, since I have my denominator represented here with 4 rows, I need to represent my numerator. So that would be 3 rows. So I'm going to take that, and there are my 3 rows to represent my numerator. Now I need to do the same thing with my other fraction. So I have 5 columns for my denominator. I need to make that 4 columns to represent my numerator. And now I will take a third shaded region piece, and this piece will represent both of my numerators. This will represent my 3 columns and my 3 rows, excuse me, and my 4 columns. And so now I can see from this shaded region that my total from the numerators is 12. So that gives me 12. And as I said before, the total number of the denominators is 20. And now again, as always with fractions, when we arrive at an answer, we need to see if it can be simplified. I'll use the prime numbers trick here and say, can both of these be divided by 2? Yes, they can. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 10 divided by 2, or 20 divided by 2 is 10. Again, can they be divided by 2? Yes, they can. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And so our product of our original problem is 3/5. And so now we're going to go a little old school. Don't have any more whiteboards. So we're going to use a chalkboard here to do our division problem. And for this, we are going to use the standard method, which to me seems to be fairly simple and straightforward. So I hope you feel the same way about it. For my original problem, I have 4/9 divided by 2/6. Now for the standard method, hopefully this isn't confusing. All we have to do, this number stays the same, and we take this second fraction and we flip it over. So we would take 2/6, and if we flip that, the 2 is going to be down here, and the 6 is going to be up here. And then after we flip that, and I didn't even do this on purpose, but as I use these arrows to flip it, that gives me my multiplication sign. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that first number where we didn't change it, and we're going to multiply it times the second number where we did change it. And now, so I'm going to multiply my top two numbers, my numerators, 4 times 6. I know that is 24. And I know my denominators, 9 times 2. I know that is 18. Now, Can that be simplified? Yes, it can. I know it's easy to see because they're both even numbers. If they're both even numbers, I know they can be simplified. I could go through the primes thing, I could go 2, 2, whatever, but I know my multiplication tables, and I know that both of these numbers can be divided by 6. So 24 divided by 6 is 4. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So my quotient for my original problem is 4/3, or we could write that as a mixed number of 1 and 1/3. Thank you for taking the time to be with me today as we discuss some ways of solving different types of fractional problems. Thank you.